Hello and welcome to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe alongside Ronnie Dahl in the studios of Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. Those are our flagship TV and radio stations on a network of community television, radio, and other media outlets. Today, as always, joined by 88.1 WBFH, The Biff. They're live streaming online at WBFH.FM. In addition, Birmingham Area Municipal Access on Comcast Channel 15 and AT&T Channel 99. In Birmingham, Bingham Farms, Beverly Hills, and the Village of Franklin. Today, we are joined on Facebook Live by yet another great Facebook partner in the community. Our community partner on today's edition of the program is the Walled Lake Consolidated School District. We will talk to Superintendent Ken Gutman later on in the show to get an update on their plans as they continue in this home stretch toward the fall semester, which begins in just a couple of weeks, and there's still a lot of complications to work through and different scenarios to put plans in place for, and a lot of our school districts locally are working through those plans, including the Walled Lake Consolidated School District, our Facebook partner on today's edition of the Oakland County Megacast, as we continue to bring you the latest news and information from around the local area about the COVID-19 pandemic, of course, but also about other top stories in the local area, and a place that you can find information on COVID-19 and the latest news and information is on our website on civiccentertv.com. So go to our website, right on the homepage at the very top of the page. If you're watching us on TV, you'll see this coronavirus link. You click on that, it's going to bring you to our coronavirus page, which features direct links to the COVID-19 informational pages of the Centers for Disease Control on the federal level, the state of Michigan, and the Oakland County COVID-19 page, which includes resources for getting yourself tested and calling the county's Nurse on Call hotline. In addition, we have links to different municipalities in our coverage area, including West Bloomfield Township, Bloomfield Hills, Auburn Hills, and Orchard Lake Village. All their direct COVID-19 pages on civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. And last but certainly not least, our top stories for each and every day here on the program today. The biggest story in the local area: Big Ten football is postponed. Is high school football next? In the wake of the Big Ten announcing that all upcoming fall sports have been postponed, attention is turning to high school sports. The MHSAA, or the Michigan High School Athletics Association, media and content coordinator Jeff Kimmerly said, moves at the college level doesn't necessarily mean high schools will follow suit. Quote, we are paying attention at what's happening at the college level, but we don't feel pressured by what's happening at the college level. Our game in terms of who we play and how close those schools are and how close the majority of opponents are is really a lot different from what happens at the college level, end closed quote. The MHSAA is expected to have a decision about the 2020 fall season for moderate to high-risk sports, including football, boys soccer, and volleyball, by August 20th. High school football season is scheduled to kick off in the period of Thursday, August 27th, until Saturday, August 29th. So yesterday, a big announcement, Ronnie, from the Big Ten canceling all fall sports, including football. It'll be the first time in over 100 years that the University of Michigan, for example, will not have a football season. Big Ten, one of the few conferences in the United States that college football in the NCAA that has made an official announcement. The Pac-12 also canceling their season. The Big 12 a little apprehensive right now. The ACC and the SEC still plan on playing their season as of now. That may change in coming weeks. We don't know until we know. But big decision from the Big Ten yesterday, and there is a big question of whether or not high school sports should continue on now that we know that the college ranks don't believe it's safe in the local region.
If college is canceled, high schools are going to cancel as well. I don't see how they're going to convince parents that it is safe for these kids to play a contact sport such as football. We're not talking about cross-country running here. This is a contact sport. You can't avoid it. So I would anticipate that that's going to happen. What we saw yesterday was them putting student athletes first before the game of football and all the money and the revenue that comes along with that. So the fact that they made that decision knowing that some of these college programs are invested in millions and millions of dollars coming into the university, not to mention the surrounding businesses that rely on those games on Saturdays and the tailgating and all of that additional revenue into the community. So if they made the decision, and we are looking at presidents of the universities, because a lot of coaches are still out there wanting to have a football season.
Yes.
But the presidents at the end of the day overruled their decision, and they made that hard decision of saying, no, we're going to put the student before the football program and the revenue coming in. So if colleges are willing to lose that much revenue, I don't see how high school is going to play.
And it's interesting for me to think about too what the high school angle is. In college, they have options to be entirely remote. In high school, there are many schools that are providing those options, but there's not necessarily a system in place or a leadership system in place and a group mentality necessarily to keep isolated beyond that, like there is on a college campus where a lot of the football players are living together. They often will house younger players with older players and upperclassmen that are mentors for them and can lead them in the right direction and keep them on the straight and narrow and make sure they're keeping safe. That's not necessarily the case in high school. These schools are taking a lot of precautions. They're doing what they can. The teams are doing what they can to keep their players safe. But it begs the question of whether or not at this point in time it is right to begin that season. We'll find out more as time goes on.
I'm going to throw this out there, and this will be kind of my last thing on this. If you're telling students that it's so unsafe that they can't actually go into the classroom and into the building, which is what's happening at a lot of high schools, or at least the high school students are being told that they're going to be remote this year, how do you tell them it's safe enough to play sports?
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting question. We'll hopefully get some answers on that relatively soon. The MHSAA, according to this article, says they'll have a decision by August 20th. That just leaves 1 week before the official start of the high school football season. Other top stories at civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. A bipartisan plan is in the works to safely reopen our schools. Michigan lawmakers are working with Governor Whitmer on a new bipartisan legislative package that would provide the framework for how schools can safely educate students this fall. The plan is tentatively set for a vote on Saturday during a rare weekend session of the state Senate, with expectations for the House to adopt the same proposal on Monday. The compromise efforts come as Michigan educators and families seek clarity and many districts scramble to find the safest way to welcome students back during the pandemic at thousands of schools that are supposed to start in just several weeks. So better late than never. We did have this mentioned yesterday by Dr. Gerald Hill of the West Bloomfield School District in his interview, which you can find on civiccentertv.com/megacast, that they are going to have this meeting on Saturday. There is allegedly a plan in place. We'll see if that does get any traction in this rare Saturday session and what may come of this bipartisan effort.
I was actually a little bit surprised with Dr. Hill being so open and speaking about this issue and his disappointment, and not only our state lawmakers but also our federal leaders as well, and addressing this issue. So it does look like there is going to be some type of compromise between the Democrats and the Republicans to get something done before we head back to school. But come on, this is a little late, isn't it? It's already so hard for these school leaders to come up with a plan and for parents to have a plan, and now we're still waiting for our elected leaders to give us some leadership and some guidance on this.
It's odd that this comes this late in the game as schools are putting their final plans in place to get back in the fall in a hybrid method, in person, all virtual, and then this could cause a sudden pivot that impacts families that have already said, I want my kid to be entirely virtual, or I want my kid to be entirely in person because I got to go to work and I don't have childcare. Now they're going to say, well, everybody's going to be in person, or everybody's going to be virtual, or everybody's going to be hybrid, and here's how every school is supposed to do it. And these schools are going to have a limited amount of time at that point in this scenario that we're concocting here to be able to make those changes, and same with the families. We'll see what comes of it. Maybe there is a more simplistic view that they're taking that helps these schools in the long run. Hopefully that is the result. We'll have more information as that comes in. Other top stories, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. Workers at some area nursing homes are planning to strike. Employees at 17 nursing homes across Metro Detroit will go on strike on August 17th over what they say are unfair working conditions during the pandemic. About 1,600 workers are demanding their employers address staffing shortages, provide adequate personal protective equipment, and pay workers a living wage, according to the Service Employees International Union Healthcare of Michigan. As of August 9th, Michigan has reported 3,801 cases of coronavirus and 21 deaths among nursing home employees, according to the Department of Health and Human Services. Among nursing home residents, there have been 7,708 cases of coronavirus and 2,022 deaths. So we've seen teachers take action recently and go on strike over the course of the summer about fall schooling. Same thing happening now with some nursing home workers and care workers that are fed up with the conditions that they're working under.
You would think 5 months into this pandemic, some of these issues would have been worked out and ironed out by now. But again, these nursing home workers are considered essential employees, yet they're still having some of these most basic problems, such as getting their hands on PPE.
Still a lot of issues to work out, and hopefully they're able to work those out. These are, as you said, essential employees, critical employees, especially in the nursing homes where these patients have already been heavily affected by COVID-19. Hopefully that has a peaceful and a productive resolution very soon. Other stories on our website, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. Nearly 800 new coronavirus cases in Michigan on Tuesday. 796 new confirmed cases of coronavirus on Tuesday, the 11th, with 7 COVID-19 deaths reported. That is the highest single-day increase in all of August so far, and the biggest number of new cases since Wednesday, July 9th, which saw 996 new confirmed cases. The state has performed 2.4 million total tests. According to Michigan's coronavirus tracking site, the state's current totals are now at 88,756 confirmed cases with 6,264 deaths. According to Johns Hopkins University, Michigan ranks 18th among the U.S. for coronavirus cases. So a big spike today, a big spike reported today from yesterday's test results intake to the state of Michigan, the largest we've seen since July 9th. That was right after that 4th of July weekend where we saw the spike begin, the consistent spiking begin that really concerned those at the top level of the state. Now we're seeing a similar incident around the same time in this month of August. Whether or not that's an isolated incident, an isolated day of mass increase, or if that's the start of a new trend, we won't see until the coming days and coming weeks.
Yeah, I think they are saying that a lot of this has to do with some of these graduation parties, these prom parties. A lot of students delayed their end of the year celebrations until the month of July, and I think this, along with some of these big events that have been going on, unsanctioned events, this could be the fallout from that.
Wouldn't be entirely surprising. It's something that the governor and her team have been vehemently speaking out against since our spike in July, and hopefully people have taken that to heart, and this is just one isolated day of additional cases. More information on coronavirus and other top stories on civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. In addition, we have links to reputable resources about COVID-19 at the federal level from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the state of Michigan at the state level, and locally at the Oakland County website and many of our local municipalities. civiccentertv.com/coronavirus, your home in the Oakland County area for coronavirus news and information as COVID-19 continues to take a toll on a number of different businesses, whether it be restaurants, whether it be retail, or whether it be places of entertainment, places like Mark Ridley's Comedy Castle. And we are pleased to be joined by our first guest today, who is Mark Ridley, the owner of Mark Ridley's Comedy Castle, with us on the Oakland County Megacast. Mark, thank you for being with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Appreciate having you on. How are you? How's your team over at the Comedy Castle been?
Well, busy for a while, cleaning, painting, sterilizing, doing the things that are necessary for if and when we get open this year. Right now, we're just down to one employee who works 1 day a week, and that's my general manager. But other than that, I'm here with this would be normally the time I would be booking all of next year. I get several hundred emails from managers, agents, comedians, and I've answered maybe about 50 so far, saying no, I'm not doing any booking until I know if and when we're going to be open. And I've talked to other people around the country. I'm part of a group of 15 comedy clubs around the country in Canada. Some who are open right now, others who have opened and closed after a week or two. So I'd rather just err on the side of caution. And if the governor says, okay, you can open at 50%, then I'll open at 50%. Anything less, I couldn't do it. So we're just waiting.
Mark, you've been in business since 1979. Are you worried this could be the end of what your business and the future of comedy for a while?
Well, yeah, my wife and I have talked about this. The good thing is that we're conservative with our finances. We left a lot of money in the account to pay the necessary bills. If I had to hold out, I could probably hold out and continue to pay rent and utilities until late next year, 2021. So, and I've also been fortunate in that I received the PPP loan, the EID loan, the largest grant that the city of Royal Oak handed out to 92 businesses. I received that too. So I'm confident that I can hang on until there is at least a partial reopening, and then hopefully following that a cure or vaccine that'll allow people to come back out. But I've put other measures in place. I've been doing some research, and one of the things that I can do, and I've spoken to the comedians and managers and agents about this, is that if I do open at 50%, a couple of the clubs are doing this where let's say they're charging $20 a seat to come in and watch the comedian live. Well, you can also sell a Zoom ticket at half price. So let's say you're sitting at home and you want to watch a show on a Saturday night, and for $10 you get a unique code that will allow you to watch the show at the Comedy Castle as it is happening. You can't pass that code around. So if you want to give it to your friends, you have to invite your friends over. So a couple of the clubs that I've spoken to said this has been very, very successful for them and allowed them to at least break even or make a little money, because they include the comedian in the back end portion of it with the Zoom sales.
Mark Ridley with us. He is the owner of Mark Ridley's Comedy Castle on the Oakland County Megacast today. So, Mark, how have the comedians been affected by this pandemic? You interact with, of course, a lot of comedians, and you have over the years. How has the art of comedy and the entertainment of comedy been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, I was speaking to a rather well-known comedian on Monday, and I find that the interesting thing is that a lot of the big names in New York and Los Angeles are moving to other parts of the country. In other words, maybe back to their home state. This particular comedian grew up in Michigan, so he moved back to Michigan. He sold his house and moved back to Michigan. Because there's just nothing happening in the industry for them, where you would hang out at the Comedy Store, the Improv, or the Comic Cellar. So if they were well enough off before the pandemic and had some money set aside, then they just decided to heck with it, and they moved back to their other house, or they sold their place and moved back to their home state or another state. So I think that's one big thing. I have two sons that are in the film industry, film and television. My one son sold a film to Universal, which was all ready for production and had everybody all lined up, and then the pandemic hit. So he's just spending his time working on a second film in Louisiana with at his girlfriend's house. So he said, there's nothing going on in LA, so why be there? The restrictions are pretty tight. Of course, Louisiana's being hit pretty hard as well. But, I think that's the biggest thing. There are people that are just chomping at the bit. There are some bars that I've heard of around Michigan that are running open mic night. I cannot open. I'm considered a theater. And like most theaters, we're at the bottom of the ladder for reopening. So there are bars that are doing open mic on a Monday or a Tuesday or a Sunday, and just somehow getting around that issue of doing comedy.
So what are your thoughts on reopening? We are seeing the casinos are now allowed to reopen, although at 15% capacity. Do you feel like you could reopen and maintain the safety guidelines recommended?
At 50%, we could, Ronnie. The room is all set up. I mean, we have the tables spread out. We have the adequate social distancing. There's a spot on the stage. It's 6 feet from the edge of the stage. And then the nearest table is up against the stage. So there's that portion is covered. But this particular person that I was at the club on Monday, and he walked around and he said, it doesn't even look like, that you've really taken that many tables out. We took all the tables and chairs out that were necessary, and we're at about 200 seats. So we're, I wouldn't do it if it was 25%. It'd have to be at least 50%. We crunched all the numbers, and it doesn't make sense to open at less than 50%. So I am busy not rescheduling, but postponing dates or canceling them outright until we know exactly when we can reopen. And there are some comedians, big name comedians, who just are not traveling. They've been given the opportunity in other states, and they said no, because of the pandemic, they don't want to travel.
Mark Ridley with us. He is the owner of Mark Ridley's Comedy Castle on the Oakland County Megacast with us today. Mark, many other artists, many other entertainers have moved their shows to virtual over the course of the pandemic. You've mentioned that many comedy clubs have either enacted or are considering enacting a partial in-person and partial virtual shows going forward, and that you've also considered that option for if and when it becomes prudent for your business. In terms of time elapsing, if your business does not reopen, and virtual means are potentially a way to bring in some revenue, would you consider potentially doing some virtual shows with comedians through Mark Ridley's Comedy Castle?
I have spoken to a number of my big name comedians, and they are not comfortable doing that. They almost need at least, let's say, 100 people in a room laughing to have some sort of feedback so that they feel comfortable doing a Zoom. The other problem with a virtual broadcast is that a lot of the comedians are getting ready to do, in the past, we're getting ready to do a Netflix special or some sort of a special. So they're trying out their new material to do this special. And as one manager told me, I don't want somebody sitting at home recording what is, break-in material and then put it out on YouTube ahead of the special. So I get that, and I understand it. And I have provided a number of virtual comedy shows for businesses, people in business that want to have some relief, something to do. So, there might be 40 people watching a comedian from their living room or basement doing a show. And as the comedian says, it's a very strange feeling, standing there doing your act with nobody laughing. You can't hear them. You don't know what's going on. So I'll just wait until we get some sort of a partial reopening and I'm able to staff it adequately. And, we've only had 2 people say that they were not going to come back to work after this is all over so far. They went through, the guidelines of the PPP loan. So they went from making a lot of money in unemployment back to what they were making at the Comedy Castle, back to unemployment now. And so, that's a good thing. There is some loyalty there, but, that can only go so long. And, and I have notified all the comedians, agents, and managers that, quite honestly, the financial structuring, the travel, the hotel arrangements, everything's going to change. We have to work together on this, because if I can't open at 400 seats, and they're not going to make what they used to make at 400 seats. So, and they've been very, very understanding. And if they say, no, I don't want to come in until you're fully open, that's fine too. I mean, I'm not begrudging anybody because they're not making the same money they've made before. I've had a couple of comedians who are very big names that said, I'll come in no matter what, because they were used to working clubs and casinos and theaters. So casino shows, theater shows are really off the table for a long time. The people I know in the theater business say they're not booking anything until the second quarter of 2021.
Could this actually open the door for some homegrown comedians that are trying to make it in the business?
Well, I think, Ronnie, that goes back to what some of these bars are doing with the open mic night. I know that when I follow a lot of these groups on Instagram and Facebook, and there's a Michigan Comedy Association, and there are names, new people coming up all the time, just because they have the opportunity to go in front of a smaller crowd in a bar and see if they have the chops to make it as a stand-up comedian. I think it will provide more opportunities. We're one of the few clubs in the country that still does have open mic night at the club. A lot of them just go for, Wednesday through Saturday or Sunday with headliners and no open mic.
So what about some of your classes that you teach? Could you do those virtually maybe?
Well, we've discussed it. And the good thing about it is that the bad thing about it is that when you do the class, you have to get up and do your act in front of the teacher and the other students. So I don't see how that would work at this time. And again, we have completely cleaned out the club. It's completely repainted, sterilized, plexiglass is in place, all the PPEs in storage and sitting out. So I don't want to start having traffic unless we are able to at least break even or make some money and open those doors, because it does, each time somebody comes in, there is a lot of work to do after they leave.
Mark Ridley with us, the owner of Mark Ridley's Comedy Castle on the Oakland County Megacast. Mark, just a couple more minutes with you. Is there any other information that you'd like our audience to know, or those that are normally patrons of the Comedy Castle to know, or anything else that you'd like to touch on today?
Well, I mean, look, Royal Oak has been a great location for me. I've been in that particular location for 30 years. And just before this all happened, I renewed my lease for another 5 years. So, and I speak to my neighbors, the guy that owns the Royal Oak Brewery also owns Lockhart's Barbecue. And, everybody's struggling at this time. And I belong to an association called the National Independent Venue Association. And Senator Gary Peters co-sponsored both of the bills to raise $10 billion to save our venues. I think that the biggest thing is that when we do get ready to open the doors, and I've done a survey with our mailing list, be ready to come out. We're taking every single measure there is to maintain that safety, but 90% of small venues will close permanently if we don't get this money. So contact Senator Gary Peters, Senator Debbie Stabenow. Andy Levin is our representative in the Royal Oak District, and tell them to push for this money, because not that I'm looking for a huge chunk of it, but that $10 billion will help a lot of these venues like myself, like the Royal Oak Theater, like the Magic Bag. I mean, these are all venues that are part of this association, and without some financial aid, well, just like every other business. But again, we're at the bottom of the ladder, that lowest rung. We'll be the last to reopen.
Well, Mark, we appreciate having you on with us today.
Thank you very much, Tyler. Thank you, Ronnie.
Thank you. Mark Ridley, owner of Mark Ridley's Comedy Castle, with us on the Oakland County Megacast today, as clubs and entertainment venues such as theaters, such as comedy clubs, and so on continue to battle through and wait this out. Some are able to do it. Some are not as fortunate and have closed down, but good to hear that there is some good news potentially with potential aid coming in for these venues that provide such great service to the people of our community. Mark Ridley's Comedy Castle, they do great work over there. And Mark, of course, is always a class act. We appreciate having him on, appreciate his time today as he continues to pivot, continues to persevere, and continues to work forward to keep that institution of our local area alive. Well, it's still, we're in the dog days of summer. It's the hottest months of the year. A lot of fires happen, and a lot of fire fatalities too. When we come back, we'll talk about why Michigan is one of the worst places in the union for fire fatalities and what we can do to prevent them with Byron Turnquist from the West Bloomfield Fire Department. That coming up and more. You're watching and listening to the Oakland County Megacast on a family of TV and radio stations. Ronnie and I will return after this break.
Michigan, we're calling on you to save lives. Don't ignore it. Don't let it go to voicemail. It's urgent. In fact, it's critical. Because if you've been in close contact with someone who tests positive for COVID-19, you may have been exposed to the virus. And you could get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department. So please answer the call to learn how to protect yourself, your family, and friends. We're calling on you to stop the spread of COVID-19, to make it safe to reopen businesses and help Michigan move forward. So if you get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department, you may have been exposed to someone with COVID-19. To protect us all, answer the call. Learn more at michigan.gov/containcovid. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jonae Khaldun. I'm the Chief Medical Executive for the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. The people who are at highest risk of getting severely ill from COVID-19 are the elderly and those with chronic medical conditions. That includes people with heart disease, diabetes, COPD, or those who have compromised immune systems. People who are in those categories should right now be staying at home as much as possible and not going out if it is not essential. If you fit into one of those categories, those are the things you should do. And if you have a family member who fits into one of those categories, you should be checking in on them and making sure they are following those guidelines. There's something everyone can do to protect the community from COVID-19.
Welcome back to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Kieft alongside Ronnie Dahl. You're watching us on Civic Center TV and on Birmingham Area Municipal Access. Both those TV channels, Comcast Channel 15 and on the public access, education, and government TV channel Guide on AT&T Channel 99. In addition, we're on civiccentertv.com. You click on our Watch Live link and you can watch us in high definition each and every day, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 12 noon for our live shows, as well as our other original programming and imported programming 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In addition, on the radio today, 89.3 Lakes FM, live streaming on lakesfm.com, 88.1 WBFH, the Biff, live streaming on WBFH.FM, and today we're on the Facebook page via Facebook Live with the Walled Lake Consolidated School District. We appreciate Ken Gutman and their entire team over at Walled Lake for joining us on today's program. We will talk to Superintendent Gutman in just a little bit, but we continue on with our programming today, talking about the hottest months of the year. Summer months here in early August. We are still experiencing some serious heat, some serious humidity, and with that brings some additional hazards. And Michigan's one of those states that has a very high fire fatality rate. We'll talk about how you can prevent that now with West Bloomfield's Fire Marshal Byron Turnquist with us once again on the Oakland County Megacast. Byron, thank you for being with us today.
Oh, glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate having you on. How are you? How's the team over at the fire department?
Good. We're hanging in there. Right now, everybody's healthy and working hard.
Well, that's good to hear as always. We appreciate the work that the fire department has continued to be doing during the course of the pandemic and what they do in normal times as well. So, Byron, we're in the thick of summer, in the dog days of summer. We're approaching another change in season, and with that brings a lot of common hazards. Even now, as we're this late into the summer, that can cause fires in the home and it can be potentially deadly. What are some of those common issues that you're seeing in West Bloomfield and that other fire departments see during this time of year, and what are maybe some ways people can prevent them?
One of the most common fires that we have here in West Bloomfield and the Tri-City area is a kitchen fire, where we have people that get a little careless while they're cooking, get distracted either on their device, on their phone, a conversation outside with a neighbor, and where they think they're only gone for a minute, all of a sudden they're gone for 10, 15, 20 minutes, and they've left something cooking unattended on the stove, and it leads to a problem, and we end up with a kitchen fire. Ronnie mentioned it early on. We do see a strange amount of fires caused in the dryer. And it's really not an electrical problem in the dryer or a malfunction of the dryer. It's poor maintenance. Homeowners, everybody needs to remember that how important it is to clean that lint trap, and at least once a year, disconnect the hose that leads to the outside of the house and make sure you get all the lint out of there. There are some companies that'll come do that for you, but it's a pretty easy job just to disconnect that, make sure all the lint is out of that, the vent pipe, and that you're getting good ventilation. While you're drying your clothes, if it used to take you an hour to dry a load of towels, and now it takes you an hour and a half or 2 hours for that same size load of laundry to dry, there's something wrong, and most likely it's the vent is obstructed and you're not getting good airflow.
So we had the tragedy, I believe it was last year, over in the Points, of the two brothers that were home alone. I believe they were making toast. A fire started, and sadly both of the brothers did die in that fire. As we head back to school, and some parents are going to have their kids home alone, even if they are teenagers, how important is it for them to have a fire plan?
It's extremely important. The first thing you need to do with your kids is make sure that, as much as you can, make sure that they're not cooking while an adult isn't around. If they have to cook and prepare their breakfast or a meal before they go to school, some things you just have to do. Another very important thing is to have working smoke alarms throughout your house. Smoke alarms should be installed on every floor of your residence. They should be installed in every bedroom, and they should also be installed outside of the sleeping area. And working smoke alarms give you that early notification that there is a problem and something might be wrong. So if somebody does get distracted and that smoke alarm activates, it'll get your attention and allow people to get out, get away, call 911, and be safe. The other thing, and you mentioned that, is having your exit plan. And everybody thinks that there's absolutely no problem getting out of your house. You live there, you know 2 ways out of every room, there's no problem, and I don't need to practice that. And that is so far from the truth, because fires are never planned, and fires always happen at the most inopportune time. They'll happen in the middle of the night when it's dark and it's hard to see. And then the other thing that happens is, in a fire, there's lots of thick black smoke that does two things. It obstructs your vision, and two, it depletes the oxygen that's in the home. And while you're not getting the amount of oxygen that you need for your brain to function properly, you easily get disoriented and confused in your own home, even if you've lived in that house for 30 years. You can get lost in your own home.
Byron Turnquist with us. He is the fire marshal with the West Bloomfield Fire Department, with us on the Oakland County Megacast. So you mentioned some of the elements of having a fire safety plan. Knowing 2 ways out of every room is one of the key components of that. For families that are enacting these plans with multiple people, several people maybe, in the home, what steps should they be taking to form those plans, and then make sure that everybody's not only aware of what the plans are, but are comfortable and are capable of working through those plans safely should there be an emergency?
Yeah, so a real simple family project to do, especially while everybody's spending so much time at home and together, is to sit down at the table with a large piece of paper and just draw a rough floor plan of your house that shows everybody's bedroom and all the main rooms throughout the home. And that floor plan should also show the locations of windows and doors, and discuss with all the family members the different options and the different ways that you could escape your house. And then when everybody's comfortable with that, you need to make sure that you pick a meeting place outside of the home, whether it's the big rock in the front yard or it's your neighbor's porch. We tend to shy away from having people meet at the mailbox, because when our fire trucks pull up, we're racing up right in front of the house, and we want to keep people out of the roadways to keep everybody safe. But pick that meeting place, and then when everything's decided and planned and talked over, actually have some fire drills at different times of the days, and have fun with it, and practice, because practice always makes perfect.
So I know there's been a push recently, or probably over the past couple years, in which I've seen is trying to educate parents to close the bedroom doors when you go to bed at night. Why is that important?
Closing your bedroom door keeps the smoke and the hot gases out. If there is a fire in your home, that's what is usually causes the fatality. It's not the fire itself, it's the smoke and the superheated gases. And by having your bedroom door closed, that buys you a lot of time to hear the smoke alarm, to wake up, get yourself oriented, and figure out a way out of the house. One thing we always teach kids when they come through for their fire safety tours is to always test that door before they open it. So if your smoke alarm goes off, you've got your bedroom door closed, before you open that door, you want to check it, make sure it's hot, not hot. You always want to use the back of your hand, not the front of your hand. The back of your hand is always more sensitive. And if that door is hot, keep it closed. Go to a window, use your cell phone, call 911. Let us know where you're at, and when firefighters arrive on the scene, we'll be able to locate you that much quicker. Another very important part in all of this planning is once you get out of the house, stay out of the house. You never go back in. You never go back in for a pet. It's very hard, but you don't go back in for a child or another family member. We need you guys we need people to stay outside. Let us know where their child's bedroom is or where their parent's bedroom is. And when we arrive on scene, we've got the tools that will help us enable that rescue, and we can go right there and work on getting them out of the house.
Byron, just a few more minutes with you. As the summer continues on, people are, whether they should be or not be, having some gatherings at their home, friends and family. Maybe they're doing a grad party. That can also create some hazards in escape plans or other fire or capacity hazards and fire hazards as well. What should people be aware of if they are having these gatherings, whether they should or not, to keep themselves, their friends, their family, and so on, or those that are gathered with them, safe?
Well, one thing with outdoor gatherings or family parties, usually that includes a barbecue. When you're using the barbecue, the same principles follow the cooking as cooking inside your kitchen. Never leave that unattended. Stay with it all the time that the barbecue is lit. You want to make sure that the barbecue is kept away from the house and combustibles. You want to keep it away, even if your house has a brick siding. A lot of homes have wood trim around windows and other combustibles that are part of that structure where a fire could spread and damage your house. And when you're using a grill outside, it's always a great idea to have a fire extinguisher. Have that fire extinguisher outside ready to go just in case. And then even inside your house, you need to have fire extinguishers that are easily accessible throughout. Time after time, we'll see where somebody went to use their extinguisher and it took them way too long to get to it as the fire was growing. Because over the years, the extinguisher that was originally left in the front of the cabinet in the kitchen has been pushed further and further back, covered by cleaning materials, other kitchen items, and they can't find it in that time of need.
Byron, just another minute with us. Anything else that you believe is important for our audience to know, for the people of West Bloomfield and surrounding areas to know to keep themselves and their families safe?
Most important is to test your smoke alarms. They really are that frontline defense to alert you of a problem within your house. Again, they should be tested every month. When you do a test, you can practice your family escape plan. If you have smoke alarms that are in your home and they're older than 10 years old, they should be replaced. You should change the batteries every 10 years. And the newer smoke alarms, you should change the batteries every 6 months. The newer smoke alarms have the built-in batteries that are supposed to last 10 years. So when that detector expires, it's just time to replace it.
Well, Byron, we appreciate your time. Appreciate having you on with us today.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Appreciate it. Byron Turnquist, the West Bloomfield Fire Marshal, with us on the Oakland County Megacast. And such great advice as we continue through the summer months and really throughout all of the year to make sure that we are keeping ourselves and our families as safe as possible from fires. As Byron had reported, Michigan has one of the higher fire fatality rates of all states in the United States of America. And prevention tactics are so key in of course, limiting how many of those fire fatalities go forward. The more we know, the better action that we can take.
Sadly, I have covered countless fatal fires, and it is so devastating. One of the things is, like he said, it's those moments of panic, because when the flames get quickly out of control, it's thick black smoke you can't see. It's so important, especially with children, for them to have a plan that is almost second nature for them. So you have to practice it over and over and over again, because when that panic sets in, some of that training will overtake and it will save their lives. But it will say, I'm guilty of some of the things he even talked about. Like, I'm sitting here thinking, okay, I'm pretty sure our fire extinguisher is just like he said, pushed all the way back behind the kitchen cabinet. So take a few moments, make sure you know where it is. And also you have to remember to get them tested and renewed as well. So fire extinguishers, even though you don't use them, do not last forever.
And those fire plans need to be in place no matter where you're at, whether it's in your home or in another home of a family member. Maybe you take your kids to your grandparents' homes. There should be a plan in place there for them too, so the kids know and the grandparents know how they would escape in that situation. If you're going into the office still during the course of the pandemic, fires happen at the office all the time. You need to be able to know how you're going to get out of a room, and Byron suggested 2 different ways out of the room. Sometimes that's going to be 2 different entrances. Sometimes that's going to be an entrance through a door and an emergency exit by way of a window. One way or another, you got to know those plans. You got to be able to practice them, work out what may not be feasible for any given room or any given situation in the setting that you're in, and form a plan that's going to be effective for you, your family, and anybody else involved.
So important as we head into the school year, and more kids will be home alone, or you have an older brother or sister who's going to be watching the younger child. This is a conversation parents need to have with their kids at any point in time, but even more so as they stay home to learn remotely going in to the fall school semester.
Yeah, going to be even more critical to have your plans in place, to take those safety precautions. Look at your dryer, look at your smoke detector and your carbon monoxide detectors as well, and get those batteries switched, get a new one in there if yours has expired. Do the necessary checks, make the necessary plans so that you can keep yourself and your family safe, especially as we continue through these unique times that we're in that cause a lot of differences in daily life, such as parents maybe having their kids at home while they're at work during the day instead of having them in school, or having your kids in school and at home on various days. You need to have those plans in place to keep yourself, your family, and everyone else around you as safe as possible. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk to one local restaurant, see how they have been affected and continued to operate during the course of the COVID-19 pandemic. That and more coming up. You're watching and listening to the Oakland County Megacast on a family of TV and radio stations. Ronnie and I will return after this quick break.
Hi, I'm Dr. Faust, the Medical Director for the Oakland County Health Division. The most important thing you can do to prevent the spread of illness is to wash your hands thoroughly and often. Follow these 6 easy steps every time you wash your hands. Step 1, turn on the sink and wet your hands with warm water. Step 2, apply soap to your hands and lather between your fingers, under your nails, and the front and back of your hands and wrists. Step 3, wash your hands by scrubbing them together for at least 20 seconds. Step 4, rinse your hands with warm, clean water. And step 5, dry your hands with a clean cloth towel, a paper towel, or hot air blow dryer. If you're using a cloth towel, make sure to change it often. For handheld faucets, turn off the water using a paper towel instead of your bare hand. Step 6, if you're using a paper towel, throw it away. Practice healthy habits like washing your hands after coughing or sneezing into them to keep you and others healthy. Go to oakgov.com/health or call Nurse on Call at 1-800-848-5533 to learn more.
Michigan, the coronavirus pandemic has put us all to the test. And now it's time to put COVID-19 to the test. As we move forward, testing will be critical. We encourage anyone who has reason to get tested to do so, those with symptoms and those without. If you are leaving home and going back to work, get tested. If you think you may have COVID-19 or you've been exposed recently through family, friends, or coworkers, get tested. Our test locator tool can help you find the right testing site that fits your needs. Even if you're looking for easy access with no cost, no prescription, and no appointment necessary, we've got you covered. Help Michigan move forward, not backward. To find a testing site or learn more, visit michigan.gov/coronavirus test. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Welcome back to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Keith with Ronnie Dahl in the studios of Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. Those are flagship TV and radio stations on the Megacast network of community television, radio, and other media outlets. In addition, as always, today we're joined by 88.1 WBFH, the BIF, a service of the Bloomfield Hills School District, and Birmingham Area Municipal Access in Birmingham, Bingham Farms, Beverly Hills, and Franklin on the same exact channel as Civic Center TV, Comcast Channel 15, and AT&T Channel 99. Birmingham Area Municipal Access is a service of the Birmingham Area Cable Board. In addition, today on Facebook via Facebook Live, as we are each and every day on the program, our Facebook partner for today's show is the Walled Lake Consolidated School District. We'll be joined by their superintendent, Kenneth Gutman, later on in the program as we continue to cover the wide variety of industries and people that are affected by COVID-19 and of course other top stories in the local area. But one of the most affected businesses or business sectors during the COVID-19 pandemic has been restaurants and eateries, and we're pleased to be joined now by the general manager of the Lodge Bar and Grill, Tommy Doerflinger, with us on the Oakland County Megacast. Tommy, thank you for being with us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate having you on. How are you? How's the team over at the Lodge Bar and Grill in Kego?
Wonderful. We're good. Hanging in there, doing the best we can, given the circumstances, for sure.
So early on in the pandemic, a lot different kinds of struggles for businesses such as restaurants and eateries where they were shut down. They had to be by curbside or by delivery only or by pickup only. Now they're able to have more people coming into the physical building, some even outside, which has really helped a lot of local businesses. How's that process been going? How has business been now that you can have been able to have people back in your restaurant for an extended period of time, albeit at a limited capacity, while continuing those other measures as well?
Sure. I mean, it's been great, obviously, being allowed to have guests back in the building. Good morning. Obviously, it's a lot different than just doing the curbside. But having guests back in, it gets a little tricky, right, with social distancing and obviously wearing the mask through the door. But ultimately, I mean, it's been great. The support has been wonderful. It's great to see the regulars coming back in as opposed to just doing the curbside. But again, it does have its daily challenges as well.
Tommy, the Lodge is a staple in Kego and for all of us in that region. How is the takeout service? Is that business still how most people are coming to the Lodge, or is your curbside service and carry-out service starting to wane a little bit?
I would say each day is kind of different. You have certain days where our carry-out is amazing, and people just prefer to get it. I don't know if it's just the convenience factor of being it ran to the curb. There's other days where it's very slow. So it's very hit or miss. Each week is very hit or miss on the curbside. I would say the amount of guests that actually come into the building is pretty consistent. But the curbside, it just varies. It's a great thing to have. It's not going to go away. We're going to continue to do that throughout this pandemic and even afterward, just for the convenience factor. But it's hit or miss every day.
So I was going to ask that, is what has changed that you think, other than carry out, you're going to continue after this pandemic, we hope, ends one day?
Sure. I mean, one of the big things that we implemented at the very beginning was online ordering. This is something that we had never had. We've been around for almost 30 years. So the online ordering is a new element that we put into place, obviously for convenience as well. And it's tricky, right? So it's something that we've never really dove into before, and being able to experience that now. So that's something that's not going to go away. Again, I would say most restaurants, bars, grills have that as an option to order. So that's something that's going to stick around forever. It's just working out the kinks and making it as convenient as possible for the guest.
Tommy, restaurants have done such great work pivoting and changing what their operations have been over the course of the pandemic. That includes putting provisions in place to help those patrons that are coming back to the physical buildings to be able to come back safely. When people go to the Lodge Bar and Grill, maybe they haven't been there in a while or since before the pandemic, what can they expect in terms of the experience that's different now than it was before?
Sure. Well, obviously, people that have come here year after year after year are accustomed to certain things. I want them to experience the same fun and excitement that they had before this ever started. Obviously, there's some changes, right? Social distancing. So our bar area is limited to, I would say, 15 bar stools instead of the 30 or 35 that we had in the past. There's 6 feet distance in between. I was kind of doing 2 at a time, and then 6 feet, 2 more bar stools, 6 feet. The dining room's changed quite a bit, pulling out some tables and chairs, and obviously you want the guest to feel as comfortable as possible and be distanced appropriately. The mask requirement through the door, it's a little bit difficult to enforce, but we do our very best to do that. So we just ask our guests to abide by that rule, even though it might be 5 feet from the door to the bar. But there's that as well. We've placed hand sanitizer stations throughout the restaurant, outside the restrooms, right in the vestibule when you enter the building. We ask, our staff is doing a fantastic job with gloves and masks and sanitation to obviously keep the guests comfortable, right? We want them to keep coming back during this time and supporting us. And we're doing our very best to make them feel comfortable and have a great experience as well.
One of the things we've seen with restaurants and other businesses, the difficulty of getting employees because of the unemployment. How are you guys on that side, and are you losing college kids now that some of them are going to be going back to school?
So that's a great question. It was very tricky, especially when we were just curbside. Obviously, we told the staff, hey, we're cutting down on numbers, and then once we, we're kind of getting ready to open back up, had to bring more people in. So some of the staff members decided that they were going to move on to other things, and we did have some come back. I couldn't be happier with the new staff that we have, the people that weren't working necessarily during the pandemic, but yet came to the Lodge Grill and Bar to help us out. They've been fantastic. They've got some great reviews. They have fun. It's exciting. Some of them had no experience whatsoever, so training program was big. Getting these people that have never waited tables before, or for a couple, it was their first job ever. And getting them up to speed with what we do here. So it's been fun. Yes, college semesters coming up shortly here. I do have a few that are just doing online classes, so that helps a lot. Kind of frees them up to be able to keep their job here and keep pushing forward at the Lodge.
Tommy Doerflinger with us. He is the general manager of the Lodge Bar and Grill with us on the Oakland County Megacast. A quick pause for station identification. To keep us legal on the radio, you're listening to us on 89.3 WBLD, Orchard Lake, West Bloomfield, Keego Harbor, Sylvan Lake, and on 88.1 WBFH, Bloomfield Hills, that is service of the Bloomfield Hills School District under the leadership of station manager Ron Whittables. Tommy, continuing on, in a lot of cases, at least in the local area, the municipalities have been extremely helpful in providing extra provisions for the businesses to be able to continue to invite patrons in and work around the capacity limits for inside the buildings by allowing expansion of outdoor areas. How helpful has your business's relationship with the city of Keego Harbor and even with Oakland County been in keeping your business alive and thriving during the COVID-19 pandemic?
Sure. Well, I know one of the things that we were offered to do by the city was more outdoor seating. So we have a limited patio space that obviously is, right now with everything going on, is probably the hottest spot to sit at the Lodge. Everyone wants to be outside, especially with the beautiful weather we've had this summer. We were authorized to put more tables and chairs outside into the parking lot. We decided not to do that. We have very limited parking here for the guests as well. So we kind of just limited it to the patio area that we have. But that was one of the nice things where, we were authorized to utilize the parking lot or kind of the sidewalk space to add more seating and more table space for the guests. It's just one of the things that we didn't necessarily take advantage of, but it was a nice offer to have.
So Okay, the weather, like you said, has been great. We have had a fabulous summer, but what's going to happen as we move into the colder weather months? Like, I love the lodge, but Tommy, I'm not sitting outside when it's 0 degrees.
I don't blame you. Well, hopefully come the colder winter months, people just start to feel a little bit more comfortable. Obviously, we're going to keep the distancing inside and make it as comfortable as possible for the guests. So even though we won't be able to utilize the patio seating, hopefully by that time people will feel a little bit more comfortable and be willing to come in and enjoy what we have to offer here.
But will you be able to survive at 50% capacity if you're only indoors?
I do. I think that we would be just fine with our indoor capacity being at 50%. And then also, the curbside and carry out as well. So I'll be out there in my winter jacket and gloves and beanie and running out to cars as often as guests want to pull up to the curb. So we'll keep that going as well.
Well, Tommy, we appreciate having you on. Just another couple of minutes with you. Anything else that you'd like our audience to know about your operations? Anything else that you'd like to touch on today with us?
Sure. Again, the biggest thing is being comfortable here and giving the guests the best experience. So we're doing our very best to do that. I do want to say thank you to the city of Kego and the surrounding areas on their continued support through this pandemic. Obviously, as a business that's been here for almost 30 years, we rely on the guests coming in every day to keep thriving and doing well. And just a huge thanks. Even when we were just curbside, the amount of thank yous that we received for being open still was tremendous. It was fun. It was exciting. There were some speed bumps, but we appreciated the guests for being flexible with us and continued working with us to make it the best for them.
Tell me real quick before we let you go, I know that before you had cut your hours, are you back to regular hours, and what are those?
Our current hours are Sunday through Thursday, 11:30 a.m. to 9 p.m. And then on the Friday and Saturday, we're 11:30 to 10 p.m. We're going to continue those hours for now. Again, you kind of mentioned staff earlier. So with the limited staff that we do have, especially back of house, it makes sense to keep those hours for now. Hopefully, winter hours are a little bit different. People tend to come out earlier, being that it gets dark earlier. So hopefully this will get us through the winter. Then obviously come spring, we want to open up and be open as long as possible for the guests. So as long as it makes sense, we'll continue to do it. And we'll take feedback as well. So obviously we want to give the guests everything that they want and expect to.
Well, Tommy, we appreciate your time. Appreciate having you on with us today.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. Great talking to you.
Always a pleasure. Tommy Doerflinger, the general manager of the Lodge Bar and Grill, with us on the Oakland County Megacast. And Ronnie, it's been so interesting to see how these businesses, particularly restaurants, have pivoted over the course of the pandemic and have made changes, and perseverance has been astounding, especially in the cases of businesses that had to shut down for an extended period of time, had to reopen at a limited capacity, and had other constraints such as what the Lodge had, where they have the ability to expand their outdoor space, but they have limited parking, and so they have to put those own limits on themselves in order to continue their business, but still persevere, have a positive attitude, and thrive despite the circumstances.
And you look at what actually worked during this pandemic. For them, he mentioned online ordering as well as the curbside pickup. And we've used both services since this all has happened, and I will say it's been great, and it's very convenient as well to be able to just drive up. You don't have to go in. You make the phone call and they bring your food out to you. So those are two services that they didn't have before, but now going forward, they will continue this. What's going to be interesting for these restaurants is when we go into the cold winter months, if we are still in this pandemic and you're limiting sometimes the inside to what, some of the bars, it's 10 people. How long can you continue to maintain this if you can't have that outside seating? Because even if you bring in some heaters that you can put outdoors, that might get you through October, part of October. But November, December, especially December, people are not going to sit out for a long period of time, I don't believe, to eat dinner. So at that, if we are still in this pandemic, how much of the bottom line is it going to continue to hurt these restaurants and these businesses, the ones that are already still struggling to maintain their facility. Of course, the Lodge has a huge following. It's a neighborhood bar. Like he said, it's been around for 30 years. So it's a lot of return people that are coming to support them because you know them. But some of the other smaller ones, it's going to be interesting.
It is. It's going to be an interesting process. We'll continue to check in with these restaurants as time goes on, continue to tell their story and keep track of their progress as the pandemic continues to impact restaurants and other businesses as well. We'll take a quick break. We'll go over today's top headlines, and then we'll talk with the brand ambassador from the Detroit City Distillery. That and more coming up. You're watching and listening to the Oakland County Megacast on a family of TV and radio stations.
Michigan, we're calling on you to save lives. Don't ignore it. Don't let it go to voicemail. It's urgent. In fact, it's critical. Because if you've been in close contact with someone who tests positive for COVID-19, you may have been exposed to the virus. And you could get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department. So please answer the call to learn how to protect yourself, your family, and friends. We're calling on you to stop the spread of COVID-19, to make it safe to reopen businesses and help Michigan move forward. So if you get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department, you may have been exposed to someone with COVID-19. To protect us all, answer the call. Learn more at michigan.gov/containcovid. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Hi, my name is Kurt Lawson, and I'm the Public Information Officer for West Bloomfield Township. We wanted to reach out to you, our older adults, to provide information that you may find useful during this difficult time. We want to ensure you that West Bloomfield Town Hall, our Waters and Utility Department, West Bloomfield Parks, and our police and fire departments continue to work hard on your behalf. Information and resources can be found on the Township website, the police Facebook and Twitter, or call West Bloomfield Park's COVID-19 Help Hotline. Please remember to keep your social distance of at least 6 feet, wear facial coverings when you leave your home, and wash your hands for at least 20 seconds with soap. These precautions will help keep you safe during these difficult times.
Welcome back to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe alongside Ronnie Dahl in the studios of Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. We're also on 88.1 WBFH, The Biff, and Birmingham Area Municipal Access. Our TV channels today, as always, Comcast Channel 15 and AT&T Channel 99, depending on your local area. If you're watching us in Birmingham, Bingham Farms, Beverly Hills, or the Village of Franklin, you're watching us, of course, on Comcast 15. On Birmingham Area Municipal Access in West Bloomfield, Keagle Harbor, Sylvan Lake, and Orchard Lake on Civic Center TV on Comcast 15. On AT&T Channel 99, all you gotta do is go into their community television, education, and public access guide on Channel 99 and select either Birmingham or West Bloomfield and find our local channels. You can also watch us online each day, civiccentertv.com, in high definition, as well as on Facebook via Facebook Live with a variety of different community Facebook partners today. That Facebook partner is the Walled Lake Consolidated School District, and we appreciate having them on with us. So we just talked a little earlier with a local bar. We'll talk with Detroit City Distillery in just a few minutes. But before we do that, let's go over today's top headlines on civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. The big story today, the Big Ten has postponed all of its fall sports, bringing up the question, is high school next? In the wake of the Big Ten announcement, attention has been turned to high school sports. The MHSAA Media and Content Coordinator Jeff Kimmerly said, moves at the college level do not necessarily mean high schools will follow suit. A quote from Jeff Kimmerly, we are paying attention at what's happening at the college level, but we don't feel pressured by what's happening at the college level. Our games, in terms of who we play and how close those schools are and how close the majority of opponents are, is really a lot different from what happens at the college level, end closed quote. The MHSAA is expected to have a decision on the 2020 fall season for moderate to high-risk sports such as football, boys soccer, and volleyball by August 20th. High school football season is scheduled to kick off August 27th through 29 with the first games of the season. So big decision coming up for the MHSAA. A lot of other leagues, including the Big Ten yesterday, the Pac-12 as well. Earlier on last week, it was the Mid-American Conference, or the MAC, and earlier on this week before the Big Ten, and of course the Mountain West also canceled their fall sports seasons, including football, and they're not going to be the last of them. There's going to be plenty of other sports organizations at the college level, and maybe even different leagues and schools at the high school level that may continue to cancel sports as this pandemic progresses forward.
So it was just announced that the Great Lakes Intercollegiate Athletic Conference is suspending its fall sports until January 2021. Of course, that's Wayne State University, Saginaw Valley, as well as Great over in Grand Rapids area, some of those colleges as well. So we're seeing this trickle-down effect. It's going to be hard to see high school sports, high school football still taking place.
Yeah, it's going to be tough to convince people, especially families and the community, that of the safety of those sports, especially when there's less of the hot buzzword has been bubble environment like you see at the college level. You can definitely have on the professional level. A lot tougher to enact that at the high school level. We'll keep you updated on any decisions from the MHSAA, but according to the article on civiccentertv.com/coronavirus, no indication just yet that a decision is going to be made to cancel fall sports at the high school level in the state of Michigan. Other top stories: bipartisan plan is in the works to safely reopen schools. Michigan lawmakers are working with Governor Whitmer on a new bipartisan legislative package that would provide the framework for how schools can safely educate students this fall. The plan is tentatively set for a vote on Saturday during a rare weekend session of the state Senate, with expectations for the House to adopt the same proposal on Monday. The compromised efforts come as Michigan educators and families seek clarity, and many districts scramble to find the safest way to welcome back students during a pandemic at thousands of schools that are supposed to start in just several weeks. And Ronnie, these plans, better late than never, I guess, but as schools are down to the wire, finalizing plans, changing some elements of these plans, hopefully not too much of a curveball coming their way with whatever this bipartisan plan in the works in Lansing brings.
I think one of the big things that they need to see in this plan is money, because as Dr. Hill mentioned yesterday, the amount of money that they've already spent in the district for PPE and making some of these adjustments, it's been pretty staggering. And this is at a point in time where every dollar counts. So I think one of the things a lot of our educators are going to look for in this plan is the funding that is needed for them to safely reopen and move forward in the fall season.
Other top stories, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. Nearly 800 new coronavirus cases in the state of Michigan. The state reported 796 new cases of coronavirus on August 11th, with 7 COVID-19 deaths reported. That is the highest single-day increase of all of the month of August so far, and the biggest single-day caseload since Wednesday, July 9th, which saw 996 confirmed cases. The state has performed 2.4 million total coronavirus tests. According to Michigan's coronavirus tracking site, the state current total is now at 88,756 confirmed COVID-19 cases and 6,264 deaths. According to Johns Hopkins University, Michigan remains 18th in the U.S. in terms of coronavirus cases. So a big spike today. We had been pretty consistently back down to the 400s level, 500s level, day to day, a nice plateau, as had been mentioned last week by Governor Whitmer and Dr. Jonay Caldoun, as a point of nice, but still needs some progress. We want to reduce the number of cases. This is a big increase, similar to what we saw at the beginning of the spike in the month of July. Hopefully, just a single day increase and not something that's the beginning of a new trend.
I think this was in some ways anticipated, because we've seen a lot of students before they're heading back to college, the seniors that didn't get to have their graduations or their proms, they've been having informal ones and larger gatherings before they leave for college in the fall. So that could be a contributing factor for this spike in numbers.
Younger population still continues to be a problem area. The most recent cases coming from young populations. Lastly, CivicCenterTV.com/coronavirus. Gun sales surge during the pandemic. Gun sales are up around the country. Retailers saw a 95% increase in firearm sales and a 139% increase in ammunition sales in the first 6 months of the year compared with the same period in 2019, according to the National Shooting Sports Foundation. The survey of foundation members also found that between mid-March and May, women accounted for over 40% of their customers. Those working in the gun industry say the economic fallout from the coronavirus pandemic is spurring increased interest in gun ownership. Some firearm owners believe the upcoming presidential election and the need to assert gun rights contribute as well. So that's an interesting point, as a lot of retailers before the pandemic were beginning to pull firearm sales, especially major retailers across the country. And even in spite of that, the sale of firearms, the sale of ammunition especially, skyrocketing during the pandemic.
I have people that I know that have purchased guns that never were gun owners, prior to this, who have since purchased guns. Ammunition right now is nearly impossible to find.
More information, more stories such as that at CivicCenterTV.com/coronavirus. In addition, you can find information from reputable resources regarding COVID-19 at the federal level from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the state level from the state of Michigan, including information on the Michigan Return to Learn Plan and the Michigan Safe Start Plan. From the Oakland County offices, you can find information about how to contact the Nurse on Call hotline and set up an appointment for drive-through COVID-19 testing. And then information from your hometown, your local municipalities, whether you're in Rochester Hills, the city of Keego Harbor, or Birmingham, or other municipalities. All of those direct COVID-19 links to their websites will be up on CivicCenterTV.com/coronavirus, your home for up-to-date coronavirus information in the local area, as we continue to cover the COVID-19 pandemic and how it affects every element of everyday life, including local businesses such as the Detroit City Distillery. Here with us on the Oakland County Megacast in just a moment. We'll be joined by Garrett Pasiak. He is the brand ambassador. Here he is, the brand ambassador for Detroit City Distillery. We are pleased to be joined by him now. Garrett, how are you? How's the team over at Detroit City Distillery doing?
Very good. Considering all the times and everything that's been going on, we've had a really, really close-knit family-type team here at Detroit City Distillery, always thinking, how do we strategize on, what's going to be the next big hit as far as the pandemic goes. But we've been good. We're a skeleton crew, but we're holding on and we're staying positive.
So for people who have not been to your place, I'm trying to basically say I may or may not have frequented your establishment multiple times. But for the people who have not been there, explain to them why you're different and the story behind how you got started.
The story behind we got started and why we're different from a lot of distilleries around here is go back to the mid to late 90s. 8 friends that knew each other since the age of 3 started the company. All right. Back in, they're from a town called Bath, Michigan, right outside of Lansing. They make a joke, if you haven't heard of Bath, you're not supposed to, just farm country. But basically what they started doing in high school is just kind of making their own moonshine. Got caught by their parents. They got grounded for the rest of the summer. Grow up, and they all become business partners. Our master distiller, John Paul Jerome, we call him JP, ended up getting his PhD in microbiology, worked for Bell's Brewing Company for a little bit, and then they decided we'll be 6 years old on September 7th. Decided, something, let's go ahead and start a distillery in Michigan, or in Detroit, Michigan, obviously. Why are we different from other distilleries? So not only is it Michigan in a bottle, all the grains from Michigan, all the barrels we get outside of Crow's Nest Coopery outside of Grand Rapids, and of course, everything distilled here in Eastern Market. That's what makes us so unique. Lots of fun stuff. There's never a crazy idea here at Detroit City Distillery. We encourage it with our team, come out with so many different types of releases and specialties that's what makes us unique. And also just being in the city of Detroit, being called Detroit City Distillery, having the honor to have our tasting room over there in Eastern Market. and as well as our factory here over here on Gratiot. So
You're really growing a brand, and it's been getting so much momentum behind the brand and your name, and then the pandemic hits. How are you surviving, and how have you had to pivot?
well, what we did is the first thing we do is you evaluate it in, you can't, exactly what you said, you can't panic, you got to pivot, okay? So you evaluate it. What's the number one thing we can do? You start seeing hand sanitizer flying off the shelf, getting sold on eBay. Us being a distillery, we had the ability to make hand sanitizer. So in phase one of that COVID scare, we immediately jumped to hand sanitizer. All right, hand sanitizer, 80% alcohol, 160 proof. All right, now, so you're making hand sanitizer. You had so many people tied to our brand. What are we gonna do that's fun to kind of get them out of a funk while they're staying at home? What we ended up doing is coming up with the ideas, making up a limited edition, what we called the shutdown bourbon. All right, you know, with the shutdown, everyone wants to stay at home. And it was a kind of really fun project in the fact that it's kind of an ode to the bad times and staying positive, stay together. But yeah, what this is that's a barrel strength 120 proof. So for it being a shutdown bourbon, the federal regulation of hand sanitizer had to be 60% alcohol or higher. So we made it a fun little collector's item, shutdown bourbon, limited edition release, where people could drive up, pick it up, order it. So that's what we did from a creative standpoint to kind of keep the lights on as well. And then once everything opened up, the bars, the restaurants, we decided to go ahead and make a fun, unique style bar that no one's ever seen in the city. So what we did over there in Eastern Market on Rifle Street, got a street permit, closed off the street, and Wednesday through Sunday had this awesome little outside bar, frozen drinks, etc., music, all socially distanced, and always a fun, unique pop-up that's going to happen. So.
Garrett Pasak with us. He's the brand ambassador for Detroit City Distillery with us on the Oakland County Megacast. So you had mentioned the quarantine barrel release, the 120 proof hand sanitizer that you pivoted to making in the early portions of the pandemic after the shutdown. Is that hand sanitizer still available to the community, and how can people maybe get their hands on it if they're looking for some quality hand sanitizer?
Yep, absolutely. What you can do is you can go to DetroitCityDistillery.com. Check out our products over there, and you can also go at shop.DetroitCityDistillery.com. Be a little shopping page that pops up, but yeah, you can go through both, and then you can select hand sanitizers, etc. We definitely do have plenty of it. So,
Garrett, are you still offering the tours over at the factory, or has that been postponed for right now?
We actually, fortunately, it was postponed. We do every Saturday. You go to our Whiskey Factory website. Every Saturday, noon, 2, and 4, and we follow the guidelines from the governor. It's 10 people or less is on the tour. It used to be 20 prior to COVID. Now we're just doing the social distancing, safe numbers, so 10 or less in either that noon, 2, or 4 slot. Totally encourage you guys to come down. It's a great time on a Saturday. So.
Garrett, so much pivoting and so much changes had to be made over the course of the pandemic. And Ronnie mentioned this earlier. You guys were surging and having so much momentum coming into the pandemic. It kind of came to a sudden halt. You worked through it. You've continued to survive and thrive despite the circumstances. What is the future of Detroit City Distillery?
Future Distillery is just to keep growing. Number one, I mean, the more barrels we can have, the demand for bourbon, rye, all our products have been very high. So number one, in the future, get more barrels, get more different products running. For instance, more unique things that kind of got us through the pandemic. We do a limited edition summer rum, okay, with grains flown up from the Caribbean. That's always fun. So just keep the drive, keep the spirit. We have, if anyone's familiar with B's and the D, we partnered with them, and we're going to be releasing a special honey bourbon barrel release in December. We also have some bespoke and cast strength that are going to be released, collector's items, in September, October, and November. So just moving forward, keep the creativity going. And I'd say that number one thing, just keep the barrels full and just keep going and going and going. Get out there, get our name out there even more. We released in Chicago last year. Just fun, just keep moving forward, keep the creativity going, and keep that production going.
So, Garrett, I wasn't able to get my hands on a bottle of the Puchki vodka last year because it sold out so quickly. Are you guys going to bring that back again this year?
Absolutely. Yep. It keeps growing and growing. So the first time we did that, sold out like that. This year, it sold out like that. We had a line around the door. And then, so we're preparing for next year to see how we can maintain the volume. So,
Garrett, just another couple minutes with you, Garrett Pasiak, the brand
Absolutely,
ambassador with Detroit City Distillery. Any other important information or interesting information about the distillery that would be helpful or interesting for our audience to know, or that you'd like our audience to know?
yeah, absolutely. As far as that hand sanitizer effort went, we made about over 25,000 gallons. A lot of that went to first responders, nursing homes, hospitals, state and local police. So that's what we like to do. We're all about community. So that's number one with Detroit City Distillery. As far as, with that kind of like spirit of just embracing that community. Another fun, interesting fact is, from a historical standpoint, when you do take that tour, you're actually standing in the old Stroh's ice cream factory, 25,000 square feet. It kind of linked to a prohibition there, but just all the uniqueness of all the little Detroit aspects that all fell together. That's what makes this distillery interesting. So,
I will say I've taken the factory tour. Anyone who has any slight interest in how this is made, it's amazing and very entertaining as well. But a quick question before we let you go. I know with the outside patio seating, how you guys are doing it there, do you limit the number of people? Is it first come, first service, or how is that working?
It's first come, first serve. We make sure everyone's coming in with a mask. We have all the social distancing markers. We try to limit of course, parties of 6 or less that are sitting together. You can take your mask off at the patio, and then we actually have a really fun kind of like mobile bar that we pull up into the street. So it's almost like a street festival going up to the ice cream truck, except the ice cream's a lot more fun than regular ice cream.
So that's a great way to get you through the summer. What are you going to do if we have to carry this into the winter months?
Into the winter months, we are planning on that. If we have to do another shutdown, and we're still not allowed kind of inside with like the big groups, we'll manage to see that's what's interesting is every single day you're watching the news and you're never going to know what's happening. So you have these different scenarios. Do we go inside and do like the limited? Do we just go back full blown to single barrel releases? Virtual tours we're doing as well, by the way. So not only do we do the in-person tours, you can contact us, contact the Detroit City Distillery, schedule a virtual tour with us as well. Those are the popular for people, just at home, kind of going a little crazy. They want to get a little camaraderie with their coworkers, friends, etc. So we do virtual happy hours. We'll continue with those. And just keep moving forward. And again, like we started, right when this happened, just pivot away and just stay positive and keep moving forward. So,
Well, Garrett, we appreciate your time. Appreciate having you on today.
No, it was great. Thank you guys for having me.
Appreciate it. Garrett Pasiak, the brand ambassador for Detroit City Distillery, with us on the Oakland County Megacast, and yet another business that's taken a whole lot of effort into surviving and thriving during the pandemic, despite all the things that are maybe against that business and all the adversity coming their way. They have continued to persevere, provide for the community also in terms of their hand sanitizer operation and their partnership with first responders, and continue to do great work that is supported by people all throughout the Metro Detroit area.
And the price on their hand sanitizer was pretty good. I remember buying it way back when this first happened. I think it was like, I don't know, $35-$40 for the gallon. And one of the good things about that, also, you're supporting a local business, but now we're seeing all of these reports of methanol and some of these hand sanitizers coming from Mexico. So while, yes, it is a lot easier to find here locally now, any type of hand sanitizer in all the stores, but you have to also watch which brands. I think there's over 100 on FDA's list now. So you could still get it from the distillery. You know it's safe, it's made local, you're supporting them, but they also supported our first responders. I know a lot of the firefighters and police officers, as well as healthcare workers, got it from them and they donated it. So a good company that is doing good things for Detroit and the surrounding area. But I will say, too, for anyone who's out there and you need to buy a gift for someone, maybe outside of Michigan, giving them a bottle of their, booze. They make gin, bourbon, vodka, different types of things. It's a great gift and a unique gift that comes from Detroit, and you're supporting a local company.
It is, and they do great work down there at Detroit City Distillery. We thank Garrett, we thank their entire team for being with us on today's edition of the Megacast. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk with Superintendent Ken Gutman from the Walled Lake Consolidated School District as they continue their home stretch toward the fall semester. That and more coming up. You are watching and listening to the Oakland County Megacast on our family of TV, radio, and other media outlets. Ronnie and I will return after this break.
As rivals, we don't always see eye to eye.
Like who scored the best recruits?
Who's gonna be who?
And whether we wear green
Or blue. But one thing we can all agree on to help stop the spread of COVID-19. Wear a mask.
Wear a mask.
Wear a mask.
wear a mask. Wear a mask.
The ball's in your court, Michigan.
Michigan, the coronavirus pandemic has put us all to the test. And now it's time to put COVID-19 to the test. As we move forward, testing will be critical. We encourage anyone who has reason to get tested to do so, those with symptoms and those without. If you are leaving home and going back to work, get tested. If you think you may have COVID-19 or you've been exposed recently through family, friends, or coworkers, get tested. Our test locator tool can help you find the right testing site that fits your needs. Even if you're looking for easy access with no cost, no prescription, and no appointment necessary, we've got you covered. Help Michigan move forward, not backward. To find a testing site or learn more, visit michigan.gov/coronavirus test. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Welcome back to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe alongside Ronnie Dahl in the studios of Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM, our flagship TV and radio stations today. In addition, we are joined by 88.1 WBFH, the BIF, a service of the Bloomfield Hills School District, located inside Bloomfield Hills High School on Long Lake Road in Bloomfield Hills. In addition, today, as always, Birmingham Area Municipal Access joins us on the television side, also on Comcast Channel 15 and AT&T Channel 99, and we are joined via Facebook Live by the Walled Lake Consolidated School District, and we're pleased to be joined by our final guest today, who is the Superintendent of the Walled Lake Consolidated School District, Kenneth Gutman. Once again, joins us on the Oakland County Megacast. Superintendent Gutman, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, Ronnie. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Yeah, good to have you on with us again since we've last spoken. How have you been? How's the team over at Walled Lake Schools doing?
The team is battered, but still moving on. It's been an interesting stretch. We want to do what's best for our children and our adults that work within our district, and sometimes that gets to be a little, controversial. But I will tell you this: we continue to be dedicated to all of our children. We want to make sure we have a building and a community and our schools that are safe for adults as well. And we're doing everything we can to ensure that happens.
So Ken, recently the school district did finalize their plans for the fall semester. For those who are not familiar, or those who are just looking for a review of those plans or how they may have been modified since they were finalized, what is Walled Lake Schools going to look like in the fall semester for its K-12 education?
Well, I can talk about the first 10 weeks or so. The semester's yet to be determined. Our first card marking up until at least October 30th will be 100% online. So we do have a plan that had to go before our board. The plan had to include some online and some in-person options. After reviewing the plan, I did recommend to the board, they did accept that we did need to begin the year virtually for safety purposes and other reasons. And the reality is that we're going to offer the best options we can to our students during this time while still keeping everyone safe. So to be upfront, we need to get everybody back in school as soon as we can. We want that. But right now we are going to operate via the internet. So there are two options. There's what we call the R path, which is your teachers in their classrooms or teachers teaching from their classrooms or home. We haven't worked that out yet, but teachers teaching students, classes of students. Then there's the My Path. So the My Path is more asynchronous. Students are not sitting in front of the computer 6 hours a day. They're working independently. And they have one of our teachers who's serving as a mentor and an advisor throughout this. So two options. The second one allows more flexibility. The first one more closely replicates school. To the degree you'll be able to do that online.
So is it up to the parents to decide which one is best for them, or is it by grade?
It's to parents to decide. So the default is the R path. The R path is the regular instruction. But those who feel like, listen, I can't have my child in front of the computer that long during the day, or we work or we have other needs, we need something that's a little bit more flexible, they can opt into the My Path.
Kenneth Gutman with us. He's the superintendent of the Walled Lake Consolidated School District with us on the Oakland County Megacast. And Ken, as we continue to approach the fall semester and with the plans for the first 10 weeks of learning, as you said, in Walled Lake to be entirely virtual across the district, that brings up the question of the technology gap. Obviously, that had to be bridged to some extent or mitigated to some extent in March when we first got into this pandemic. You've had some time now to adjust to the reality that virtual learning may be the case in the fall. For families that have previously not had access to those technologies or access to the internet, what has the school district been able to do to help provide for them as we are approaching the fall semester where those first many weeks are going to be virtual?
That's a really good question. So we began, as you know, Tyler, we've talked about this a little bit, but we turned over in a weekend. We ended up within a couple of weeks after we began our online instruction in March, giving out thousands of Chromebooks that we had a pickup and a delivery system. We did Chromebooks. We've continued to order more Chromebooks over the summer as we recognize we'll definitely need more. We're going to have a Chromebook distribution day. We're also looking at hotspots for families who need those. We believe we'll be able to have those all set for people. And then we're also looking at some areas like some clubhouses of some apartment complexes where we may be able to put in a hotspot to make sure there's internet coverage for everyone. We recognize that we're blessed in this community that we've had a significant number of people able to access the curriculum. We felt we actually found we were somewhere in the mid-90s, but if we're missing one child, we're missing a lot. So we want to make as many opportunities as we can available for our students to have access to our curriculum, and we're going to do that before we open.
So school account day is so important for the funding. How in the world is that going to work?
Bonnie, you want to tell me? That would be great. Can I turn it around and ask you? I don't have any idea how we'll do account day. We'll take attendance in all of our online courses. So there's that. But, how do you measure whether you've had 75% attendance to count the day as we've done in the past? Our state superintendent, Dr. Michael Rice, has been outspoken about the fact that we need to adjust this. I understand our legislature will be considering this, among other things, this Saturday in a rare weekend legislative session. We look for direction on that as well. Attendance looks very different online.
So speaking of that, other than addressing this issue of attendance, what do you hope to see come out of Saturday's session?
Well, I don't know that they're going to touch this, but and not to appear to be sarcastic, but to be sarcastic, it's August 12th and our budget year started July 1st. So I'm hoping maybe a budget or something to let us know how much money we actually have to spend this year. Our needs are greater and we don't know how much money we have. That's a travesty. So that would be really helpful. And then in terms of flexibility with things like attendance, with clock hours, with the number of days, the types of things that we really do need to know to make sure that we're in compliance in addition to providing the very best education we can.
Ken Gutman with us. He is the superintendent of the Walled Lake Consolidated School District with us on the Oakland County Megacast network of community television, radio, and other media outlets, including today the Facebook page of the Walled Lake Consolidated School District via Facebook Live, and of course thank them for being with us for the entirety of our program today. So as we're approaching the fall, and one of the hallmarks of the fall in the state of Michigan and all throughout the country is fall sports such as football. And of course the Big Ten announced yesterday that they are they are suspending their 2020 fall sports, all fall sports. Similarly, that happened in the Mid-American Conference last week. It happened in a couple other major conferences. The GLIAC today announced that they are canceling their fall sports season or postponing them until January. That includes universities such as Wayne State. The MHSAA says they're going to wait until August 20th to make any decision on fall sports, but school to school, those decisions can still be made individually. Any thoughts on that from Walled Lake's angle? Any chance that you may decide to forego fall sports due to COVID-19?
We're weighing those options right now. We certainly don't want to deprive our children of an opportunity to participate in athletics. At the same time, with safety being our primary focus and with us not having face-to-face instruction for those reasons, we have a lot to think about. The Big Ten canceling, I think, may influence the MHSAA. I know my beloved Spartans not playing will be a disappointment, but then again, safety first, right? So have we made a decision yet to do something individually? We have not. We're talking about what to do. We do look to the MHSAA for direction as well. I know they want to play. I know the Big Ten has moved football or moved to spring. I think they're looking at other sports as well. I'm wondering if the MHSAA will end up considering that. And we want to do what's best for our kids as long as we can keep them safe.
So as we go back to school, two other areas that were exposed as problems for some of these kids. Number one, childcare, and number two, food. A lot of families and a lot of kids rely on the lunch program for a healthy meal. Any plans to address those two issues for the fall?
Childcare is the tricky one, so let me handle that first. We're talking about what to do in terms of providing childcare, and at the same time, I'm still concerned about staffing it. You know, staffing childcare, and from my conversations with those around the county and the state, that's what they struggle with. How do you staff childcare, guarantee that children would be safe, and guarantee that staff would be safe in that environment? We're talking about that. We haven't resolved that. Meals we've resolved. We did a really nice job. Our food services department, we had board members volunteering. We had staff members and parents volunteering to get meals out. We delivered, I want to say, a couple 100,000 meals over a couple of months. We had pickup lines at two of our high schools. Well, we understand that the meal delivery will be, or meal service will be required, and as it should be, for anyone within our district who's virtual. So should that be the case, and we're waiting for a final determination from the state, that would be 2 meals a day, 5 days a week, and potentially 7 days a week. We won't let our families go hungry. We won't let our kids go hungry. We're committed to doing that, even if we don't get that kind of direction from the state.
Kenneth Gutman with us. He is the superintendent of the Walled Lake Consolidated School District, with us on the Oakland County Megacast across the local area. And Ken, the Oakland County Health Department, Oakland schools have both been hard at work in partnership with our local school districts to prepare for the fall, including providing school nurses to many of our local school districts who are able to utilize that personnel in their own ways tailored to the needs of the school district. Any talks in your school district about how you will utilize the aid from Oakland County and Oakland schools for this nursing program?
That's really good timing. Thank you, because I did talk to our deputy county executive about that this morning. Even though we'll be virtual, we're going to begin with using our nurses to help us plan protocols and thresholds for when we do return, to act as a liaison with the Oakland County Health Department, to communicate with parents, to work with our principals and administrative staff in terms of how to handle situations as they occur when we do return face to face. We'll have 3 nurses allocated to us, and we're grateful to Oakland County, the Oakland County Health Department for providing those for us. 3 nurses, 19 schools. We won't have complete coverage, obviously, but to help as an advisor, to help inform our decisions. We're educators. We are not medical professionals. So to have the availability of medical professionals to help guide our thinking will be a big advantage for us and for other districts across the county.
Ken, as we're approaching the fall, just a couple of weeks out, any potential for changes to the current plans in place? We've seen other school districts that have modified their plans multiple times in the last few weeks, or are the plans for fall in Walled Lake pretty set in stone?
We're set to go virtual for the first 10 weeks up until at least October 30th. But how we do virtual is always subject to being tweaked. We did add that our path, my path, yesterday. We released that to our community. We'll be answering questions. We're doing our parent information sessions. So we want to make sure we get information out to our parents as we do make adjustments. We certainly want to be nimble and be able to pivot quickly to make sure we're providing the best for our students. We think we have a good plan for return, but we'll tweak that quite a bit too before we do return with the latest information that we have in terms of what's going on with COVID and also what's going on with our facilities. We want to make sure that we don't put a plan in stone and say, here's where we're going for the next 20 weeks, when it may not be the best with the information we get at the time.
Ken, just another few minutes before we have to let you go. A couple more questions. I'll give them both to you right now. What message do you have as we're approaching those last couple weeks and we're about to return to school? What message do you have for the students as they prepare to return, and what message do you have for their parents and their families as they prepare to return to learning?
Yeah, so let me just in general say this to both. We love you and we want you back, and we look forward to you being back in our classrooms and having what we used to think was a normal school experience. We're so proud of the community we have here in Walled Lake, and we know they're supportive of education. At the same time, we can bemoan our fate. We can all be upset and mourn the fact that we don't have what we had last year at this time. But the ideal is to make this the very best educational experience we can with what we have. We are not broken. We are rebuilding, and we are making ourselves stronger, and that'll take a full community effort. I would also say that I know with my own children, they'll follow my lead. And so I would ask everyone to please be a positive example for your children, that we make the very best of a bad situation. Nobody asked for us to go through a pandemic. Nobody in the schools wanted to have a pandemic. We want to make sure that we provide our children with the best we can, with the information and resources that we have. And we want to make sure that we're in partnership with our parents and community. And we want to get our kids back as soon as we can.
Okay, Ken, I have a very important question that I'm sure all the students want to know the answer to.
Yeah.
Can they wear their pajama bottoms while they're doing their Zoom classrooms?
As long as the camera stays above the waist, we're good, Ronnie. I think most people have, or a lot of people have done meetings in sports coats and shirts and shorts or whatever. So, yeah, I think that would be just fine. Let's keep the camera up high.
Well, we appreciate having you on today, Ken.
Yeah, always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kenneth Gutman, the Superintendent of the Walled Lake Consolidated School District, with us on the Oakland County Megacast. And Ronnie, much like businesses have all had their own unique changes made and their own unique plans put in place to continue to thrive through this treacherous time in our history, same goes for the school districts, as every school district has a different plan. We've talked to Avondale Schools, who plans to be fully in person come the fall semester's beginning. West Bloomfield doing a hybrid method, and they're even considering some changes as we're approaching the fall, potentially putting all the middle schoolers that will be in person in one school instead of two. And in Walled Lake, they have their plans pretty well set for the first 10 weeks of the school year, but flexibility is always in place, and they're always trying to find new ways to help families out with where there's nuance, and there's always going to be some difference that has to be accommodated for.
You're not going to make everyone happy. There are some parents that are adamant that they want their kids back in the classroom. There are other parents that do only want the remote learning. And don't forget, this also involves the staff and the teachers, and they have to weigh in on this decision as well, because it impacts them greatly as well. So again, so much decision making by these educators and the leaders to try to come up with the best plan for their district and for this time. I do think it's a good plan to say, hey, we're going to take it like this way for the first 10 weeks, and then we'll reevaluate, because this virus is changing each and every day. But the one thing people still have not been able to address, most of these school districts are still struggling with coming up with parents that need that child care, and how can you fill that gap?
Yeah, and hopefully that is, and as we spoke with Ken Gutman about this, hopefully that is something that maybe is discussed this Saturday in that meeting with the state legislature and Governor Whitmer. They're plan to hold a session on Saturday. A rare session of the Michigan State Senate will be happening on Saturday to vote on a bipartisan bill that's in the works, that's been worked out between Michigan's lawmakers and Governor Gretchen Whitmer. And then it's expected to go to the House early on next week on Monday. And that story, we have a full link to that story on our website on civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. We'll take you through all of our assets here for just a couple of minutes as we approach the tail end of today's edition of the Oakland County Megacast. As we mentioned, all those top stories, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. You can find all the day's top stories. We post these each and every day before our shows here from 10 a.m. to 12 noon, our live shows, including that article you can find right there on civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. In addition, if you need resources to learn more about COVID-19, you can find resources such as the direct COVID-19 page from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. It'll tell you how to protect yourself, what to do if you are sick, information about cases in the U.S., effective masking, schooling, and more. And you can get that direct link instead of flipping through a bunch of different pages on the web to get to that one web page. Get it individually from civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. Similarly, you can get the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services information, the government's information about coronavirus from the state of Michigan's COVID-19 page at civiccentertv.com/coronavirus, including the state's information about the My Safe Schools roadmap and the Michigan Safe Start plan as well. Learn more about Phase 4, Phase 5, and other phases in the Michigan Safe Start plan. In addition, you can find more information on the Oakland County Megacast on civiccentertv.com/megacast. Find out what we're all about, what we do each and every day. Learn more about our partnering TV stations such as Birmingham Area Municipal Access, our partnering radio station 88.1 WBFH The Biff, and watch full episodes, full interviews, and short clips. So if you missed Ken Gutman's interview today, you only saw half of it, you can watch that full interview. That will be up later today on civiccentertv.com/megacast. And additionally, if you only have a few short minutes to get the most important information from the show, you can watch short clips on our website as well, civiccentertv.com/megacast for all of our content and information on our partnering stations, and civiccentertv.com/coronavirus for the latest information about COVID-19 and other top stories in the local area and information directly from federal, state, and local sources regarding COVID-19. That is going to do it for today's edition of the Oakland County Megacast. We will return tomorrow morning from 10 a.m. to 12 noon for our live show, but you can stay tuned to 89.3 Lakes FM and Civic Center TV throughout the afternoon for replays beginning at 1 o'clock and going all throughout the afternoon, evening, and tomorrow morning. I'd like to thank Mark Ridley from Mark Ridley's Comedy Castle, Byron Turnquist from the West Bloomfield Fire Department, Tommy Doerflinger from the Lodge Bar and Grill, Garrett Pasiak from Detroit City Distillery, and of course Superintendent Ken Gutman from the Walled Lake Consolidated School District for joining us today. The school district also our Facebook partner. We appreciate all of you tuning in on the Walled Lake Facebook page today for joining us on the show. Thank our technical producer Larry Nyland for getting all of our guests arranged and helping us work through some technical issues that you have here and there on live TV and radio. Our booking producer Jake Kustash also for lining up a great lineup of guests today, as he has for tomorrow and the rest of the week. We appreciate all the hard work that he's doing and all of our friends at our partnering community television and radio stations. That is going to do it for today's edition of the Oakland County Megacast. For Ronnie Dahl, I'm Tyler Kieft, thanking you for tuning in. The Megacast returns live tomorrow morning at 10 a.m.